One of the most common questions that I get asked is, how do I lower my cost per lead? And don't get me wrong, it's a great question, but it's slightly the wrong one. So today I want to show you how to lower your cost, but not per lead, but per qualified lead, because that's the number that actually matters. But here's the difference. Anyone can lower their cost per lead. You simply chase the cheapest clicks you can possibly find and watch the number drop. But then you end up with a funnel full of leads that never reply, never book, and never buy. The number on your dashboard, it'll look fantastic, but in reality, you are burning your cash. So I'm not gonna teach you how to get cheap leads today. I'm gonna teach you how to lower your cost per qualified lead, the leads that actually turn into paying customers. That's the metric that grows a business. So I'm gonna give you 5 levers ranked roughly by impact, and I'm gonna go deep on each one so you can actually go and implement them. So let's get into it. So the first tip and the foundation of everything is setting up your audience targeting properly, because here's the truth. Every other tip in this video, your creative, your landing page, your tracking, all of it gets multiplied or destroyed by who you put your ads in front of in the first place. So if you're showing a brilliant ad to the wrong audience, you've already lost. So here's how we start. Now, the single biggest mistake that I see is how people build their lookalike audience. Most businesses take their entire customer list and dump it into Meta, click 1% lookalike, and call it a day. But the problem is that tells the algorithm to go find more of everyone, including all your worst customers. The one-time buyers, the refunders, the people who are complained, and the people who are never gonna be profitable in the first place. The algorithm isn't broken, it's doing exactly what you asked it to do. You just asked it to do the wrong thing. Think about it this way. A lookalike audience is just a mirror. Whatever you hold up to it, it reflects back at scale. So if you hold up your entire messy customer list, it reflects back more mess. But if you hold up only your best, highest value customers, it reflects back more of your best customers. So the quality of your lookalike audience is entirely determined by the quality of the seed list that you feed it. So here's how people do it properly. If you have enough data, and by that I mean at least a few hundred customers, you do not feed the algorithm all your buyers. You filter first, you put out your top customers by lifetime value, the people who bought more than once, the people who stuck around, the people who actually generated a positive return for your business, and then you build a lookalike off that segment, your top 20% or even your top 10%, and then you let the algorithm go find more people who behave like your best customers. And then you can take this even further with value-based lookalikes. Most platforms now let you upload not just a list of customers, but a list of customers along with how much each one is worth. And when you do it like that, the algorithm doesn't just look for people similar to your buyers, it weighs its search toward people similar to your highest spending buyers. That's a dramatically more powerful signal, and most businesses never even use it. Now, a quick word on cold targeting beyond lookalikes. A lot of people obsess over interest targeting, stacking dozens of interests, trying to find the perfect combination. On modern platforms, that's mostly just a waste of time. The algorithm is good enough that broad targeting combined with a strong value-based lookalike and great creative will usually outperform a heavily layered interest setup. Your job is less about manually finding the audience and more about feeding the algorithm the right signal of who a good customer is, right? And then you just get out of the way. One more thing here that just ties directly to cost per qualified lead is when you target based on value. The leads that come through are inherently more qualified because they resemble people who already paid you and then stuck around. So you're not just lowering your cost per lead, you're raising the quality of every lead at the same time. And that's the whole game here. This signal change done right tightens up your entire funnel from the very top. Now, tip number 2 is proper tracking, and this is the one that separates businesses that scale from businesses that stay stuck. I'd argue it's probably the least exciting tip on this list, but it's the most important because everything else you do is only as good as your ability to measure it. But here's the reality. You cannot lower your cost per qualified lead if you can't even see which campaigns are bringing in qualified leads in the first place. Most businesses are looking at their ad platform dashboard, seeing a cost per lead number and making decisions off that single metric. But that number tells you almost nothing about quality. It tells you how cheaply you collected a name and an email, but it says nothing about whether that person ever becomes a customer. So let's break down what proper tracking actually looks like, because it's a few things working together. The first one is clean UTMs on every single ad. This is the unsexy foundation, which a UTM is just a little tag that you add to your links, and it tells your analytics and your CRM exactly where a click came from, like which campaign, which ad set, which specific creative. But most businesses either don't use them or use them inconsistently, which means once a lead enters their system, they've already lost the thread on where it came from. So if your UTMs are a mess, everything downstream is a guess. Standardize them, enforce a naming convention, and make sure everything and all the links are tagged. The second is real ad attribution. This means being able to see the full journey a lead takes before they convert, not just the last thing they clicked. Because a parent might see your video ad, then a retargeting ad, then Google your brand, then finally convert. The last click attribution gives all the credit to that final touch and makes the other ads look worthless, when in reality, they did the heavy lifting. The proper multi-touch attribution shows you the whole path, so you stop killing the ads that are actually working. And then third, and this is one that almost nobody does, you track LTV and churn rate for each campaign and each ad. This is where the magic happens, because here's what you'll discover. Two campaigns might have the exact same cost per lead, let's just say $20, and on the dashboard they look identical, right? But when you track them downstream, you find out that the campaign A brings in customers with a lifetime value of $2,000 and a low churn rate, while campaign B brings in customers worth $600 who churn within 2 months. It's the same cost per lead, but wildly different values. And without proper tracking, you'd never know. But once you can see this, your decision becomes obvious. You scale the campaigns bringing in high LTV, low churn customers, even if their cost per lead looks higher on the surface. And then you cut or fix the campaigns bringing in those cheap leads that never stick. This is what actually means to optimize for cost per qualified lead instead of cost per lead. You're no longer optimizing for the cheapest name, you're optimizing for the cheapest path to a valuable long-term customer. And there's a second benefit here too that's huge. When you feed the quality data back into the ad platform, telling Meta or Google not just that you got a lead, but that lead became a high value customer, the algorithm will get smarter. It starts hunting for more people like your best customers automatically. And the platform optimizes for whatever you feed it. So feed it leads, it finds leads. Feed it qualified high value customers, it finds more of those. Your tracking literally trains the algorithm to lower your cost per qualified lead over time. Without this, you are flying blind and calling it strategy. With it, every budget decision you make is backed by truth. So if you're looking for a good ad attribution and tracking tool, I actually even just linked one in the video description below. Tip 3 sounds almost too simple, but I promise you a huge number of businesses get this wrong. And it's costing them a fortune. Your ad, your offer, and your landing page all need to match. This is called message match, and breaking it is one of the most common and most expensive mistakes in all of paid media. So let me walk you through exactly what goes wrong. A person's scrolling, right, and they see your ad. That ad makes a specific promise. Let's say it's just like free assessment to find out exactly where your child stands in reading. That promise is what makes them stop and click. In their head, they now expect to get a free reading assessment. That expectation, that's everything. Now they land on your page, right? And if that page is your generic homepage with your logo, your navigation menu, and a slider of different services, and a vague contact us button, the promise is gone. There's no free assessment front and center. The visitor now has to hunt for what they were promised. And here's the thing about people on the internet. They don't hunt. They get a flicker of confusion, they'll feel a tiny drop in trust, and they'll hit the back button. You just paid for that click, and then you got absolutely nothing for it. The fix is to make the entire path one continuous, consistent message. The ad makes a promise. The offer is that exact promise, and the landing page reinforces that exact promise the second they arrive, using the same language, the same imagery, the same offer. So if your ad said free reading assessment, your landing page headline should say free reading assessment, not welcome to our tutoring center. The visitor should land and just immediately think, yes, this is exactly the place that I was trying to get to. And this applies all the way down to the details. The tone should match. If your ad is fun and casual, your landing page shouldn't suddenly be corporate and stiff. The visuals even should match. And if your ad featured a specific image or person, seeing that same image on the landing page creates instant continuity and trust. Even the offer specifics need to match. If the ad said free, the page cannot suddenly mention a fee. Even little inconsistencies like that is a crack that leaks conversions. And here's why this connects directly to your cost per qualified lead. Your cost per qualified lead is driven by two things here: what you pay for the click and what percentage of those clicks actually convert into qualified leads. Message match is one of the biggest levers on that conversion rate. So if your page converts at 5% and tightening up your message match takes it to 10%, you've just cut your cost per qualified lead in half with the exact same ad spend and the exact same traffic. You didn't touch your budget at all. You just stopped breaking the promise that got people to click. It seems basic, I know, it seems obvious, and yet I audit businesses every single week that are sending expensive, well-targeted traffic to a generic page that has nothing to do with the ad in the first place. So fix this, and it's often the single fastest win available to you. Tip number 4 is to A/B test, and I mean test a lot, way more than what you're testing right now, because here's the uncomfortable truth. Nobody, not me, not you, not the best media buyer in the world, actually knows what's going to work before they test it. We have educated guesses, the market decides though. And the only way to let the market tell you what works is to test relentlessly. Most businesses test occasionally. They find one ad that works right until it dies, and then they panic. The businesses with the lowest cost per qualified lead treat testing as a constant, never-ending machine. There is always something being tested, always. So let's talk about what to test, because the scope is bigger than most people realize. You start with the creative because it's your biggest lever, but don't just test wildly different concepts. Test the small stuff too, because small stuff moves numbers more than you'd think. Test your hook, the first 3 seconds of a video or the first line of copy, because that's what determines whether anyone even consumes the rest of the video. Test your thumbnail, test your headline, test the call to action, test the colors. Seriously, something as small as the color of a button or the background of an image can shift your click-through rate. Or test different formats: video against static image, long against short, talking head against text on screen, or user-generated style against polished production. Each of these can meaningfully change your cost. And then test your offer. This one is huge and underused. Put a free guide against a free assessment, against a free trial, against a discount. You generally will not know which one pulls the most qualified leads until you run them against each other. And the winner is often not the one that you would expect. I've seen offers that the founder was sure would flop end up cutting their cost per qualified lead by 1/3. Then you can even test your landing pages, test different headlines, test long form pages against the short form, test with a video versus without, test how much social proof you show or where you place it, test your form length, more fields versus fewer fields, because that directly trades volume for quality. Test the position and wording of your call to action. Now here's the most important concept in this whole section, and it's why testing is so powerful. Improvements, they compound, they don't add, they multiply. If you improve your creative click-through rate by 15% and you improve your landing page conversion by 15% and you improve your offer take rate by 15%, you don't get a 45% improvement, you get those percentages multiplying on top of each other, which could just easily mean cutting your per qualified lead by half or even more over time. Each individual test might only move the needle a little, but stack 20 small wins over 6 months and the result is transformational. This is how the best accounts get cost so low that competitors can't understand how they do it. There's no single secret here. It's 100 small tests and improvements compounding. One practical note though is test one major variable at a time so you actually know what caused the change, and give each test enough budget and enough time to reach a real conclusion before you call it. Testing without enough data is just guessing with extra steps, but once you build this into a habit, testing becomes the engine that drives your costs down month after month forever. Now the 5th tip is one that almost also nobody talks about, but it has a massive impact on your cost, and it's completely outside of your actual ad account. You need to understand your seasons. Almost every business has natural rhythms throughout the year. Demand rises and falls in predictable cycles. And those cycles completely change your cost per qualified lead depending on when you're spending. A tutoring business will just get absolutely slammed before exam season and then will go quiet over the summer. A kids product brand explodes around the holidays, and a travel brand peaks before summer and winter break. A fitness brand surges every January. But these patterns are real, they're predictable, and most businesses completely ignore them when planning their ad spend. So here's why this matters so much for your costs. During your peak season, demand is high and intent is high. People are actively in buying mode, actively searching, actively ready to act. That means your ads convert better, your leads come in more qualified, and your cost per qualified lead will just naturally drop. The market is doing half the work for you here. So during your off season, that's when the opposite happens. You're spending money to convince people who simply just aren't ready yet. They're not in their buying mode. So your conversion rates fall and your cost per qualified leads, well, they're gonna climb, sometimes dramatically, for the exact same ads as before. So the strategy is to align your budget with your seasons instead of fighting against them, right? During your high seasons, you go aggressive. You pour budget in while leads are cheap and they're ready to buy, and you capture as much of that demand as you possibly can. This is when you make your money. You don't play it safe during your peak, you press the advantages hard. Now during your slow seasons, you change your approach. You don't necessarily go dark, but you stop pouring direct response budget into a market that just isn't ready to buy. Instead, you shift towards cheaper top of funnel awareness and content and build your retargeting audience. So while everyone else is overpaying for cold leads in the off season, you're cheaply filling your pipeline with people who convert when your peak season hits. You're using the quiet months to load the spring instead of wasting money trying to force sales that just aren't there. There's also a real opportunity in understanding your competitors' seasons. When your competitors all pull back, ad costs in your space will, of course, often drop because, well, there's less competition in the auction. Sometimes the smartest play is just to maintain a presence during a lull while everyone else has gone quiet, picking up cheap impressions and qualified leads that you'd be fighting tooth and nail for during the peak season. The mistake almost every business makes is spending roughly the same amount every single month, treating January the same as their busiest month of the year, and then they're confused when their cost per qualified lead is just all over the place. So map out your year and look at your last 2 or 3 months of data and find the real peaks and valleys. Then you can build your budget around those rhythms. You will get far more qualified leads for the same total annual spend simply by just spending it at the right times. So if you want help getting all 5 of these dialed in for your business, your ads, creative, funnel, landing pages, tracking, and season strategy all done the right way, the link to book a free audit is in the description. We work with a limited number of brands at a time though, so spots are going to be limited. And while you're here, check out our video on ad attribution where we break down why most businesses are making decisions on complete broken data. So I will see you in the next one.